Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. Oh my gosh, look at all these buttons. Look at all these buttons. This is kind of insane. What do we do with all of this information? Well, we need to bring it down to something manageable. So, Stellaris is what is known as a 4X game. Explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. But there really needs to be a fifth E in that, and that is economy. Now, the entire game, you will rise or fall depending upon your economy. If you don't have a good economy, you can't build the ships, you can't settle the worlds, you cannot keep your space empire running, and therefore you will fall the moment a challenge rises up to face you. If you get an ornery neighbor, you gotta have something to fight them off with. If you have a big bad space alien smashing through your territory, you gotta be able to have the economy to build the ships, to send it over to get it taken care of. And so, the entire game is based around your economy. Now then, let's go to step 1 of economy. The basics. In the upper left-hand corner, you're going to see these 3 symbols. Energy, minerals, and food. These run the whole thing. Everything your empire does will be based upon these 3 resources. They are at the bottom of every resource chain. And remember that, a resource chain, because just like in logistics, you're going to have a chain of resources strung together to get things. So these 3 resources are at the bottom of the chain, and your entire empire will grind to a halt if you run out of any of these. So, number 1 is energy. Now, energy is the number 1 thing that makes the whole economy run. The more energy you have, the better off you will be. And therefore, energy districts are the most important districts you will ever own. And you should build these in place of housing districts whenever possible. Housing districts are typically to be considered the least important district. You should only build them if you absolutely have to. If you can have a luxury apartments or I think they get upgraded to pleasure domes or paradise domes. If you can do that instead of a housing unit, then you will actually be coming out on top. Now, the reason for that distinction is housing districts generate clerks. Now, clerks seem to be very useful. They create amenities, which means you are going to need them from time to time because amenities keep your people happy. They also increase your trade value. Well, trade value is very useful, but a straight-up energy generator will create more energy. Therefore, you should do the energy generator first if possible. However, remember, if you create an energy generator or a mineral unit or a food unit, these are going to be a 1-for-1. You're going to create only as much housing as you have jobs for, which means at some point you're going to have to either create luxury apartments for your extra stuff, or you're going to have to create some housing districts. Next, you're going to have minerals. Now, minerals are the basic building block for all physical units in the game. Minerals are used to construct buildings, consumer goods, and alloys. And consumer goods and alloys are the things that are really going to suck up your minerals late game. They are very valuable, and you will need to expand upon these as your empire grows, and especially when you want to start building your fleets. Finally, you have food. Food is necessary to feed the people. They are the least important of the base resources, but they're also a good resource to use to trade to other empires. For these 3 resources, having large stockpiles is something that you will want for energy and minerals, because at any point in time you're going to need to grab this stuff and throw it at a project. food is the least important thing to stockpile. Having a stockpile of food really doesn't do anything for you, but it can be... Having a stockpile of food lets you know that you can expand your population at will. And also, there are certain other empires that will always have a food deficit, and therefore you can trade them food for other minerals or other things that you might need from them. So those are your 3 basics. Next, we go to the Tier 2 parts of your economic tree. Advanced economics are alloys and consumer goods. Consumer goods are real simple. They are the things that keep your population comfortable. They are the air conditioning units and the toasters and all the comforts that allow your people to live comfortably. I do believe that robots also have consumer goods, but that's mostly like, these are the things that allow your robots to not fall apart. So they are maintenance goods, whatever. But for the most part, for your organic races, consumer goods are the things that you need so that your people do not hate you. If they run out of consumer goods, well, in our own society, we have definitely seen what happens when our creature comforts go away. People lose their mind. Genocide going on in another country? It's bad, but nobody cares. My air conditioning stops working? So yes, consumer goods. You do not necessarily need to stockpile consumer goods, but you definitely need to have them. Much like food, consumer goods are very valuable, but they don't stockpile for, you don't need to stockpile them like crazy. Now, alloys. Alloys build your ships and your star bases. And both of these, alloys and consumer goods, require minerals in order to make them. That's why I said the minerals are a big deal. And so, you're going to want to have worlds that have a lot of minerals generated in order to be able to create these. At the start of the game, you're going to have a very difficult time generating alloys. Everything that requires alloys is so expensive. And so, your fleets are just not going to be that big. You want to build up your star bases? Okay, that's great. You require alloys in order to build things on those star bases, so you're going to have to figure that out. Now, something that I figured out, a wonderful little strategy for the beginning of the game. You're probably going to want to put some alloy production facilities on your worlds, I understand, but those take up a lot of space, they consume a lot of resources. A much better way to go about it is through trade. So the fastest way to get alloys is to trade per month. So when you open up your trade with another race, you can trade just straight up alloys, or you can trade alloys per month. And with the NPC empires, they will trade you food per month, minerals per month, for alloys per month. Now, it's going to seem like you're getting ripped off on this. You're going to be giving them 50 food a month and only getting 10 alloys a month. But this is absolutely a good trade, especially if you're not using any of these extra resources. Creating an excess of food or minerals or energy is not something that's really going to break the bank. And if you've got a giant surplus of one of these things, instead of building a ton of alloy factories, just trade them to your neighbors. Give them a certain amount of food per month, get back a certain amount of alloys per month. Now, be careful when you do this. Do not bankrupt yourself by doing this. Especially in the start of the game, I'm going to recommend only doing this in 10-year increments. Make a 10-year treaty with one of your neighbors. And then, even if you've got some resources left over, give it a year. And then, after you've given it a little bit of time, set up another one of these trades with another empire. Have it so that 5 different empires, you've got a little trade thing going on with each of them. That way, no one empire is getting all your resources, but also all of these empires will have slightly better diplomatic status with you simply because you are doing trade. I mean, look at how long the United States and China have managed to not kill each other because we're huge trade partners. It's a thing that actually works. But most importantly of all, you are using somebody else's economy to supplement your own. And alloys are a beast. They are absolutely the thing that are gonna, slow you down the most. Now, there is a planet type that I can never seem to pronounce. It's Economopolis or something like that. It's the city world. It's Coruscant from Star Wars. City worlds are crazy good when it comes to when it comes to consumer goods and alloy districts. They actually have districts. They have 3 districts. They have the cities, they have consumer goods, and they have alloys. I know they also technically have those luxury districts, but they do nothing. They're a gigantic waste. Forget they exist. So, consumer goods and alloy districts, they will have a whopping, I think it's 60 per. It's this huge amount. And once you get yourself a city world, you will be able to pump out consumer goods and alloys like it's nobody's business. You will no longer have a problem with either of these 2 resources. Once that occurs, your big problem is actually now minerals. You have to feed these furnaces. And population, because, you now need over 100 pops in order to fill these city worlds so that you've got enough people producing all this stuff. But mineral districts, those start to get hard to come by. So towards endgame, once you really get this good economy going, you're going to want a megastructure called a matter decompressor. The matter decompressor goes in orbit around a black hole, and it creates a metric ton of minerals. At stage 1, it generates 500 minerals per month. At stage 2, it makes 1,000, stage 3, 1,500, stage 4, 2,000 minerals per month. And here's the crazy thing. You will absolutely use those, especially if you have more than one city planet. This is where you're looking at endgame crisis stuff. You've got these monster fleets, these 300k fleets coming into your face. And I know they recently did it where you can actually raise that. You can have fleets even bigger coming at you. The matter decompressor, along with some city worlds, can create enough alloys to actually create the fleets that are big enough to stand up to the endgame crisis. So, do not neglect your economy. Make sure your minerals are strong, make sure your city worlds are producing, and make certain you do not run out of these 2 ingredients. Part 3 of your economy: strategic economic resources. What the heck are these? Well, these are your exotic gases, your rare crystals, your volatile motes. These are hot, big, valuable items that a little dab will do you. In order to do certain major events, you need to have these resources. You get a lot of them from, every once in a while you get them from space, but generally on your worlds, you will be able to, your higher tier specialty buildings will create some of these. The big 3 are exotic gases, rare crystals, and volatile motes. Exotic gases are for advanced research buildings, and they boost your weapons and shields. So, in order to get the more advanced research buildings, you must have exotic gases. If you go to the edicts, you can actually spend exotic gases to boost your weapons and shields. Rare crystals. Rare crystals can be used to create advanced consumer good buildings. So, if you do not yet have a city world, and you are using regular tiles to create your consumer good creators, then you can create advanced consumer good buildings with rare crystals. Also, rare crystals are useful in crystalline plate armor and you can use them as an edict resource to boost lasers and hulls. Next, 3. Volatile motes. Volatile motes are a chemical thing, and this is something that is used for advanced alloy buildings. Just like the rare crystals with the advanced consumer good buildings, advanced alloy buildings require volatile motes. Also, they're good for explosives and fuels, and there's a few other random things here and there you can use them for. These are the main 3, and you can actually make these on your own. Then you've got the other 4, which I almost never use, but from time to time they come in useful. One is Zro, Z-R-O. It is a psychic shield component. There are some psychic things that you can get, some really advanced technologies way late game, and you can use the Zro to power those psychic things. I've only ever found Zro as a like an extra thing that you can get from space. You'll see it and go, oh, that's the Zero. It looks like blue dust. Next is dark matter. It is a ship component for some very specific ship components, and the dark matter is used to actually power them. I have only ever seen these once. I got them when I beat up a fallen empire. So as you can imagine, that is a thing that is going to not happen until much later in the game. Honestly, you'll get it, and then you'll be like, I think I've already won. Next, living metal. I don't know what it does. I know it's some kind of mega construction thing. I rarely find this resource. I have gone entire games and never found living metal. Sorry. Nanites. Nanites, like living metal, is another one of these things. There are certain nanite construction plants that create ridiculous amounts of exotic gases, crystals, and motes, which is great. But once again, the nanites are one of these things that it's a very niche item. So Zro, dark matter, living metal, nanites, these are all very niche items. You're going to have to look up what the heck they're used for. But when you find them, grab them, because they are very hard to get. Abstract resources are the last category of resources. These tend to fall outside of the resource tree. These aren't tier 1, 2, or 3 resources, they're their own thing. So here we go. First of all, population. People equal jobs. Jobs equal every single resource your empire generates. Therefore, population is a really big deal. You should not skimp on your population, and as you do different playthroughs, you need to figure out how to maintain population controls. How do you get that extra little oomph out of your population can actually make a big deal later on in the game. Next, influence. Influence, that purple icon, is your political clout. You need it to expand your territory, use edicts, and maintain diplomatic deals. In the base, your base influence gain is 3 influence per month. It is very difficult to generate more influence. There are a couple ways to do it. One is there are certain unity things that you can do that'll get you some more of this stuff, but for the most part, if you keep your factions happy, you can get some extra influence from your political factions. If you rival another empire, you can get a half an influence point per month, and that's a super huge deal, but this also means you need rivals, and I've definitely gotten to places in the game where I'm so powerful that I can't rival anyone. Or the only people you can rival are the fallen empires, who immediately decide to kick your door down and punch you in the face. Guess, they're like that. Also, you can complete certain research tasks to gain more influence, especially in the start of the game. When you encounter a new empire and you do not yet know their language, if you complete their language first, you get 50 influence points. There's also a bunch of little missions here and there that allow you to get influence bonuses, but before you accept that, make certain that if you're about to get a hit of influence, look at your current influence, because if you go over, you hit 1,000 and that's it. That's where it stops. So you never want to go over if you can avoid it. Next, Unity. Traditions are purchased through Unity points. There are some buildings or population types that will get you more unity, but they are rarely worth it. Generally, unity is generated at a fairly steady rate. This unity allows you to purchase your traditions, but if you want to kind of fast track it, and I usually do this towards the start of the game, is you get the Marketplace of Ideas. The Marketplace of Ideas policy adds 0.25 per trade value. And for me, it's the best policy at the start. I have heard several people say that this is a completely useless thing. Do not use the Marketplace of Ideas. I'm going to leave that up to the individual. I still use the Marketplace of Ideas to a certain point. Once I got a whole bunch of cash generating, then I will switch back to the Marketplace of Ideas. It's that kind of thing. Next is research. Now, your entire empire depends on research. Technology is key in this game. The empire that has the best technology typically wins the game, and so every single game I do, there is a tech rush going on. Final is the naval capacity and the starbase capacity. Now, this, quite frankly, is how many ships and starbases you can have at a time. Now, you can go above this mark, and when you have a ridiculously large economy, you will go above your naval capacity. But once you go above your naval capacity or your starbase capacity, you will pay out the nose for these assets. So, make certain if you're going to go above these levels, you have a serious stockpile built up. And then look at it, be like, okay, I built these extra ships. I am this far above my naval capacity. Can I afford this? How long can I afford this? Mid-game, I have definitely had some situations where I was going to get my face kicked in, and the only way to avoid it is to go way above your naval capacity, pump out a bunch of ships, survive, and then painfully go through the task of looking at this armada that you've created and get rid of a certain amount of it. That way you can go back down to your naval capacity limit, and then you don't completely fall apart. Empire Sprawl. Your Empire Sprawl is something that is the bigger your empire, the higher your Empire Sprawl. And you're going to want to mitigate that a little bit, especially at higher levels. If your Empire Sprawl goes above your administrative capacity, everything in the game will begin to cost more. Much like your naval capacity, much like your starbase capacity, administrative capacity is one of those things that it's not as horrible an increase. Your tech cost, your tradition cost, and your campaign cost will start to go up, but not at such an exponential rate that you can't do it. Now, if you're like me, I get really, every once in a while, I'll create a bureaucracy world that has nothing but bureaucratic buildings on it. And that raises your administrative capacity, which then makes it so that you actually don't even have to worry about this. It's a lovely little way of keeping your empire in check. And there you have it. It does look very complicated, but I promise it becomes more intuitive as the game goes on. I will be going over these parts again as I play the game in future episodes, so if you've got questions, go ahead and put them in the comments, or you can just watch some of the videos and see if your questions get answered. Remember that the greatest explorers learn through trial and error, so go ahead, play the game, enjoy yourself. Understand you're probably going to mess up the first few times, and that is okay. Sometimes mistakes are a lot more fun than constant success, and I will take that to the bank. See you among the stars.